Hey Robbie, hope you're enjoying your getaway. Now this takeaway stuff, you obviously understand it. You understand what our objective is, which is all tied to being able to keep the arms from where they were at address, hanging underneath the shoulder joints. We want to keep the arms nice and connected. We don't want them to get away from us and create that disconnect. We don't need them to come in more. We just want to have the arms tracing back with the body turn. Okay, so as that happens, body's obviously rotating to the right. Arms need to feel like they stay working with the body. The club head, if the arms are staying nice and connected, and if we're not doing too much in this domain with the rotation of the shoulders and forearms, the club head should be able to stay right there in front of the hands. Now, that's all great in theory, and I think that you're at this point now where you can do this, and you can do this if you're pausing, but on the golf course, when you're actually hitting shots, you know, you've got the target in mind, and then you're staring at that golf ball with this expectation of results, and then things start to happen, okay? The takeaway starts to change. We struggle to make that same movement. And this is 100% normal, okay? You have so many layers of that motor pattern in here that is all tied into what you've always done. And that's why it's so difficult to overwrite these things. We need to, I think for one, you need to understand that to make that leap from range to golf course, it needs to first not be competitive golf course rounds. It needs to be range to experimental on course rounds, and then eventually more casual rounds with buddies, and then, you know, tournament scores. Just because you need a little bit of time on the golf course where you are staring at targets to be able to still say, okay, I'm gonna commit to this target, but I still wanna have this feeling of width and extension to create the takeaway the way that you want it to. And I think that in trying to understand where you're coming from movement-wise, the feeling of keeping the arms connected to the body, but trying to stretch the club head back, okay, creates a nice stretch through the left side of the body. You'll feel as though the club head is an awful long way away from you, okay? It's really stretched back with width and one piece feeling. It's definitely not rolled in. It's definitely not arms away. It's just the sense of really trying to extend that back, in my sense, towards the camera, okay? So, stretching that back with width, allowing, as we then continue to elongate that backswing, that right leg is going to continue to rotate until we can create that window there. And that's something that what we've seen so far with you is that you'll get this happening, and then as you then go to complete from there, it wants to kick this way. So what we just want to be able to do enough is feel like we're continuing to rotate back around until almost the end of that backswing. Okay, it doesn't necessarily, sometimes the downswing movement might happen a little bit before the end of the backswing, but we do want to look as though we're turning until most of that backswing is completed. So, thoughts and feelings, you continuing to do, I know this isn't going to sound crazy, you continuing to do the pause swings, where the pause swings are paused both here and there, will give you a really good concept and sensation of making sure that you're continuing to rotate and pivot to the top of that backswing. You making shots on the golf course where there is a really exaggerated feeling of a continued turn where you're really tied in, and this is where, like, I would not, absolutely not be trying to do this stuff in a competitive round of golf. Do this in, you know, you go and play a round of golf in the evening where you do not have a scorecard. You're purely trying to make the connection between range and golf course, and identifying, are you able to feel this stuff in this continued turn, continued pivot, getting things up into position on a golf course setting. Okay, it's tricky. It's tricky because we have this expectation up there, and we need to be able to really allow our brain to be immersed in the feeling and sort of just accept whatever happens out there. We do that enough times and we start to become more in tune with what this feeling is, and then we can go from maybe being 90% in tune with movement, 10% in tune with results, then maybe after enough reps it becomes 50%, 50%, and then hopefully by the time that we're ready for a tournament, it's 90-10 or 95-5. But it does need to start with, for us to create movement change, we need to be far less concerned with outcome, far more concerned with what we're physically doing. So your pattern being us trying to get the takeaway working more neutral, so getting the club working back with width, getting the right side continuing to turn away to the top, so we're wide and we're rotating to the top, feeling that there's that window created right through there. Being able to execute that in slower feels where the internal focus, where our brain is at, is all in turn with movement, much less with outcome. Okay, so I do think that you understand what you're doing. We just need to really make sure that there's enough time spent in the in-between phases. It's very difficult to go from getting a feeling here, doing it with pauses, and then going to the golf course and then trying to have it match up. Okay? Hope that makes sense, pal.